I'm always the one waking up at night getting her the bottle. And I've done that consistently every single day for 11 months. And I will tell this much right now. Like last night I woke up, I was like, I can't live my life like this anymore. Like it truly takes, you break your REM cycle and you are not the same person that day.
Yeah. 100%.
And to get that demon out of you, like I have to, like, I'll chug my coffee and I'm still asleep. I'm like, I got to go work out because there's a demon brewing in me and I need to put him to sleep.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. I've got Alex Mazhukhin here with me, a.k.a. Mr. Build It. This is going to be an interesting episode, so I hope you're ready.
Yeah.
Alex, I don't know if you know, but I start every single one of these with a really bad dad joke because that's my jam.
Is that your thing? Oh, that's cool. Let's kick it off, dude.
And you'll appreciate this one. Over 5/4 of all people admit that they're bad with fractions.
Nice. Get him, son.
I thought you'd appreciate that, Mr. Builder Man.
We should start off with a prayer instead of that joke.
I might need Jesus a little bit more. Oh man, dude. Thanks for taking the time and coming on here. Will you introduce yourself? Let everybody kind of know who you are. I want to hear a little bit more of your backstory and like how the hell you became Mr. Build It, the YouTuber. Because I think it's got to be an interesting story, but maybe it's super lame and boring and you just fell into it. So anyways, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll just go off on all the tangents.
Yeah. All right. So let's see here. I'm Alex Mazhukhin. My background's Russian. I moved to the States in 96. I was 7 years old. I got my career that I retired from was a respiratory therapist at the hospital, put people on ventilators, all that fun stuff. And 6 years ago, I started, my wife and I have been married for 9 years, but 7 years ago, we just were in a classic situation where she wanted nice things. I couldn't buy them. So I decided to try making them, started sharing all that stuff on Instagram. And eventually it just kind of evolved from that point on into me having a show on YouTube called Mr. Build It. And I basically do home renovation videos for the last, 6 years now. And
you worked yourself out of work and you had to buy another house to keep going.
I know.
Is that part of what happened where you're like, because you recently just bought another house. Do you still have the other house? Did you sell the other house?
No, I flipped the other house. And I always tell people, I was like, I have the worst job in the world where I have brands paying me money, my salary, plus paying for each project for me to renovate my own house. And then I get to turn it around and flip the house and do that all over again. Yeah.
Which sounds great.
I know.
It's like high class problems, right? But there's a lot of stress that comes with that. You're trying to figure out how to integrate things or there's certain deadlines or timelines. And is this meeting these criteria?
Once you figure out, it's like a lot of people, there's a lot of people go, oh, poor you. What now? It's after a while you realize it's a machine and it's a business, right? It's one of the best businesses I think you could have to do for your own, investments. But in order for you to keep the machine running, there's a lot of sacrifices that need to happen, right? So it's not like I wake up at noon and I say, okay, let's start swinging some hammers. It's like, no, I have a team that works with me and we got schedules and deadlines and all the contracts. There's timelines. We're running a show. That's what we're doing. I just get to have the benefits of
you control
everything it's mine. Yeah, it's mine. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a huge benefit to YouTube. And that's how you and I kind of connected in the first place. Mm-hmm. We sponsored a few videos. You were doing the nursery makeover when you were having your most recent daughter, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't like to use pronouns. So, I mean, just be more sensitive, okay?
I'll try. I'm not good at that. Yeah, and you get to have 2 boys and a girl. I got 3 girls, and I'm like, I was really, really hoping for another boy. And this third girl,
that's right.
Right before this, my wife just texted me. She's like, everything is great at the doctor. We can go ahead and schedule an induction for any date after this. I was like, oh god, this is real.
Oh man, but you guys, there's a weirdness. It's funny. I've noticed all of my buddies who have daughters, like all daughters. It's kind of weird, but like I can't joke around too much with them because they become overly, I don't want to say the word is like protective, but like they become a little bit like confrontational. Like I'll be like, my boys do jujitsu, and let's say one of my buddies, his daughters do jujitsu. I was like, "Oh, you want to see my boys beat up your daughter?"
Yeah.
Jokingly, completely jokingly, and they would just have the switch turns on. So, girl dads, man, there's a lot of psychoticness that comes with the territory.
Yeah, I'm totally psychotic. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like you have less patience. Like even like all these badass guys, like Evan Hafer from Black Rifle Coffee. It's like he's got all daughters, like badass a human being,
Yep. Yeah, well, they only give the badasses a bunch of daughters, you know what I mean? Because you other humans can't handle it.
Dude, we're taking the easy way out. You know what's funny? How is your guys' pregnancy this whole way has been going? Is it like as smooth?
It's been pretty good. I mean, it's like the typical first trimester, morning sickness, not feeling so great, lack of energy, that kind of stuff. And then you get into that second trimester, it's been pretty smooth. She felt great. And then as she approached the third trimester, started to get a little bit bigger, a little more uncomfortable. And now she's like, get this child out of me. But like really no complications. We're super blessed in that regard. Like we've been very fortunate to not have any real major issues or anything like that. So that's been great.
Yeah. It's funny how the first two boys, it was smooth sailing. Both of them, she basically gave birth natural. And then the third time around, there's something to be told about like genetically, like having kids when you're past your 30s. Once you hit that 30 mark, it's like the male's metabolism slows down, your sperm count goes down. All women's have more complications and all that stuff. And it was interesting because as soon as like we kind of passed the second trimester, she went into like preterm labor, and so we basically put a halt to all of our plans for like 6 weeks before she finally had a healthy delivery. But even after that, it's like pelvis won't dilate, lost a bunch of blood. So we're like, oh, I guess we're not meant to have kids past, 33.
Well, and I kept telling my wife that too, because she's like, I just don't remember complaining this much and being so tired all the time. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you may have, maybe you didn't. You were also like, she had a full-time job before during the other two. And now she, she doesn't have to work or whatever. So she's, I say didn't have to work. She's a full-time mom, which is like, a job that I couldn't do. But she was working a full-time job, and she didn't really have time to like sit down and complain and be tired or whatever. Like she had to get up and go to work and all that kind of stuff. So this time, but I was like, don't forget, you're like 10 years older too now than the first time you had a child. Like you're not 24, 25 anymore, There's age does that weird play. People always ask me, they're like, so having a daughter, what changed for you? And I was like, I don't know if anything specifically changed about having a daughter. What changed is like with every kid that I had, I became more and more patient and like took myself less and less serious. Like when they're the first kid, 9 months old, you're like, they're throwing a fit. We need to nip this in the bud, and then by the time the third kid comes out, you're like, whatever, you just want to be held. That's fine. I get it. And then, so that's one positive thing about getting older and having kids as you're older. But then the other side of it is like, it's, how much easier was it to endure all those things? A lot, because especially as you get older and you have a new child at an older age, like the lack of sleep hurts a lot more when you're older. Like you need that sleep. God. You know what I mean? Like you can do without sleep in your mid 20s. You get into your 30s, mid 30s without sleep, and you're like, this sucks.
Dude, I lived off of with my first two boys. I wanted to make sure I was front and center in front of them. My mission in life was always that they're always daddy's boys, not mama's boys, because they could always they could default to mama's boys. And till this day, they run to me when they get hurt and all that stuff. They have a deadbeat mom, so that's kind of, no, I'm kidding.
Dude, she is going to hammer you for that. I'm going to save that clip and send it right directly to her.
Hey, do that social clip and then I'll promote it. I'll put that. Be sure to check out the podcast. Where was I going with this?
I don't know, but that's the clickbait title I'm using now.
Well, thanks for
Mr. Build his deadbeat mom.
Kim, make this stuff up. So when I was like crib training them and all that stuff, like I slept on their floor for months until they're like learning all this stuff. And so I lived off of like whiskey and coffee. You know what I mean? Whiskey at night, coffee in the morning. And then now in my 30s, with Harper, again, I'm doing the same thing where I'm like front and center, right, always in front of her. And she wakes up. She's almost 11 months this week. I don't know how many weeks that is. I'm sorry. We can like cross multiply and divide. And so every night and every morning between 3 and 4 a.m., she wakes up and wants a bottle. I have been the person, we have a system where like I'll make the bottle, my wife, I'll lay the baby with my wife, she'll hold the bottle. And I've committed to making sure that I'm always the one waking up at night getting her the bottle. And I've done that consistently every single day for 11 months. And I will tell this much right now, like last night I woke up, I was like, I can't live my life like this anymore. Like it truly takes, you break your REM cycle and you are not the same person that day.
Yeah, 100%.
And to get that demon out of you, like I have to like, I'll chug my coffee and I'm still asleep. I'm like, I got to go work out because there's a demon brewing in me and I need to put him to sleep. Yeah. Kids, dude.
Oh my gosh. Let's back up a little bit. So,
yeah.
Well, first of all, how old are your kids? All three of them?
Let's see here. We have Beckham just turned 6. Jack is turning 8 here, so he's 7.5, and then Harper is 11 months.
Right on. So your kids are very similar in age to my kids. My daughters are 9 and 7, and then a newborn. So pretty similar in age.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's.
And how old are you, by the way?
35.
35. I was gonna say you don't look a day over 37, so that's good for you. That's nice. You hold it together.
Yeah, I'm trying. Dad bod. It's really getting the best of me here. I took the time off from going to the gym. I've been so busy. You talk about working out. I was doing good working out for a while again. I've been sort of on and off, more on than off for the last 2 years. And the first like 6 months, I was like crushing it. I dropped like 25 pounds, which I didn't know I had 25 pounds to lose. And beautiful. I felt good. And then COVID hit and I like caught the COVID-19, you know what I'm saying? And like,
did you? Oh, you stacked it, huh?
I just like,
does it not mentally, I'm always curious because you're one of those people that I like being around because you're doing big things. And by, running businesses, starting up ideas, creating content, the most important part that I relate to you on. And I'd imagine people who are kind of performing at that level, it's kind of like your NSX. It's like you got to take care of that thing. You make sure like all the pistons are firing. You got to make sure the thing purrs. Do you not feel about those consequences? Like if you have nachos late at night and you have a crummy sleep, like you're still crushing it at work. You're still coming up with ideas.
Dude, none of that affects me. And that I think is I've always eaten like a 5-year-old. Always. Like always eaten like garbage, cookies, chicken fingers, mac and cheese, pizza, soda, like always.
Hell yeah.
And I mean, it's awesome. It's like my favorite food groups,
Yeah.
But and everyone always said like, oh, it's gonna catch up to you. But I had such a high metabolism, and like you said, in your 30s, your metabolism slows down, that kind of stuff. And I had a custom car shop, and like I'm go 100 miles an hour all the time. And when I was when I had my shop, I was picking up heavy shit all the time. I was transmissions and tires, and just constantly moving and wrenching. And so everyone else, that's when like CrossFit really became big. And I was like, man, I don't need CrossFit. I got Shop Fit. Like I'm working out all day, every day. Yeah. Well, then I transitioned out of working on cars because tactical baby gear takes off. I'm like, I don't need to work on cars anymore. What the hell am I doing? So then I kind of transitioned into more of like an office environment where I'm just like talking to the camera, editing videos, sitting down, making content, and like even sewing stuff. Yeah, it's like I'm sitting here and just like, whatever. It's not the shop, So then that's when I started to kind of gain weight initially, was like when I started sitting more. And I was like, shit, I should probably do something about this.
Interesting. So it doesn't interfere with your mental clarity. Like you don't get like irritated, and just like be like, throw it all to hell kind of thing.
No, I get more irritated when people try to like get me to like eat with the right thing, and I'm like, no, I want a fucking pack of Oreos. You know what I mean,
dude? You are a 5-year-old.
Yeah, dude.
You laugh at the movie like when a 5-year-old says like, no, fucking Oreos.
No, but seriously, so no, nothing. My diet doesn't affect me mentally. What affects me mentally is having to switch gears, like you said, operating at a high level of like creating and innovating in the baby space. Like I'm constantly trying to think of new ways to innovate, that doing things that people aren't doing, solving problems that haven't been solved, whatever I can do in that way creatively. But then I got to switch gears and I'm having a super high level finance meeting about something else. And, it's like big decisions to make, millions of dollars, this and that, da, da, da. That's what screws with me, is like, it's really hard to switch gears. And, I'm sure as a creative, and I'm sure I imagine maybe a little bit different, but I'm sure you can understand, like, the creative mindset is so fragile that anything outside of that's like a little bit stressful just like crushes those ideas. Or you had a good flow of something going, and then something comes up and it's all gone, and it takes a while to get back to that mental state of like that creative flow. So that's the thing that stresses me out the most. And I've recently had to like schedule my week in a way where it's like I have these 2 days a week that are packed with meetings, like every 30 minutes to an hour. It's like boom, 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 meetings. And I got 2 days a week that are just like, I'm over here in the shop, I'm at the sewing machine, I'm trying new things, I'm experimenting with new ideas, I'm creating content, I'm editing video, like that kind of stuff, just like creative flow days that are uninterrupted, stuff that I don't have to worry about, like, oh, I've got a meeting at 3, or I've got to do this, and I only got an hour to get this done, and then I got to, like, I scrapped all that kind of shit, and I was like, I'm only doing meetings on these days, and everything else is happening on these days. Don't bother me otherwise. So
that's so interesting. I'm man, because I do like that. I'll consider it like this state of just like flow where you could be packed with something to do on the agenda every hour to the 30-minute mark, and it's jam packed. And I love it, right? Because your pupils are dilated. You're like, go, go, go. Let's do this thing. You're around people. You feed off the energy. But if that only state of flow or zen works with me, if I have clarity mentally, like if I had one too many drinks, and I had a bad night's sleep, and obviously because we went out, I had bad food, and I didn't work out that day, I genuinely don't like myself. And I feel like I've never accomplished anything. I don't like anything that I create. I feel like I have nothing good to present. Like it's like not to the clinical diagnosis state of like depression, but the first parts in the morning that I'm brushing my teeth, I'm like, what's it worth? Like, what the hell am I even doing? Like, and so I really catch myself where I'm like, hey, listen, you can't drink too much. You can't eat bad food. You got to work out every single day. And once that's all in order, I'm a firing machine. Like, let's go. Every 30 minutes, creativity. Let's write ideas. Let's be around. It's a fantastic day. You take those things out of the way, and it's a slippery slope for me.
Interesting. That's super interesting. There's not a lot that affects me like that. I'm genuinely like a super positive person, and I don't let much get in my way. But there are certain things like just interrupting something with like some major thought that I'm not prepared for, some big financial thing. Like Alex, my business partner, will bust into my office and be like, some big bombs, and it's like, oh shit. And then like the rest of my day is shot. But yeah, super interesting.
Hey, let me ask you this: where, and I don't know if this is the direction you want to take, but where you guys have this operation where you guys have financial meetings and all this stuff, where do you find, like, I don't know what Alex's background, but like your background from a little bit that I know is, you worked at custom shops, you've had a upholstery or sewing kind of background. So you know how to make the products, right? And maybe even marketing, but like, where does the rest of the thing that comes part of the puzzle of running an enterprise, maybe, where, you have certain members, like, do you find people that kind of lead you financially? Can we afford this $1 million thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, where does that all come
from? Yeah, Alex he's incredible and like such a vital organ here, right? Where he is very mindful of that. Like, finances is his thing. He's our CFO, right? So he's the one that's, managing all the finances, making, getting lines of credit, or, just managing all the finances in the business, what we can afford, what we can't afford, where do we need to cut costs so that we can, reinvest that money elsewhere. We need to hire people for these positions so that we can scale things. How much, he's managing inventory. So how much inventory do we need to order? We're going to be out of inventory by this date. He was able to see COVID coming before COVID hit. And we stocked up on inventory before that. Like when we first got the first few pieces of news in the US about it in China, he was like, this is going to be a problem. Actually, it wasn't, but it was started in China, but it was really an Asian thing. We manufacture in Vietnam, but some of our materials are sourced out of China, right? So we've got like some of our nylon webbing or the polyesters comes from China. So he knew, he's like, this is going to probably be a problem. And we like front loaded a bunch of inventory, like just in time to when everything shut down. It was already on a boat. It was already on its way here. And our biggest delay at the front end of COVID was like a 2-week delay. And that could happen any time of the year. So like, we got super lucky. So having somebody like Alex, who is a very operational kind of person, who is more of the business minded finance and operations, like that's the ticket really to balance somebody like me who just wants to have fun and make cool shit. Like, it's like, because it's one wheel all around. Yeah. I mean, math and art don't always go together. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like most artists are poor.
You definitely need those types of people around.
Yeah, you have to. It's like, you just have to have it if you want.
Did you guys, and maybe you've already covered this on the podcast, how this all started, but did you guys both go into this together, or did you start this thing and then he kind of joined your thing?
Yeah, I started it in 2013 and I brought him on in 2015. And the backstory of that is like Alex and I grew up together. We were in kindergarten, first, second grade together. And we were never like super close friends, but like we went to each other's birthday parties and played soccer together and that kind of stuff. And then he kind of had his own group of friends through high school and I had my group of friends, but we were always, we were in the same schools and we live in a small town. So it was probably 2014 or so, years after high school, 10 years later, when I saw he posted a picture on Facebook of a product that he invented on the shelf at Target. And he was, it was like the receipt and the product on the shelf in Target. And he said something about it being cool that, to see something you created being sold in Target or whatever. So I was like, you know what, that's who I need to talk to. And that's who I need to ask questions about what I got going on. Cause again, I came from building custom cars. I knew how to make a product, but beyond that, I didn't know how to sell it. And here's a guy who have known my entire life, who's selling to mass market, to Target. And turns out he was selling to Target, Macy's, Urban Outfitters, all these big major retailers. Right. And so I called him up and I started asking some questions and he's like, oh, have you thought about this? And have you thought about this? Da, da, da. And stuff like UPC codes and barcodes and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, right. Of course. Like, I'm like, so I'm like, man, I got a lot of work to do. Like I know how to create the thing, but I didn't have any clue of how to sell it or scale it. And I was selling at the time, but very small scale. I was making the first bags and then I was outsourcing, to have small batches made because I couldn't scale it. I was building super high-end cars. I didn't have time for sewing stuff, but I knew that the idea and had traction and that it was scalable. And then Alex ultimately saw, hey, this is a good idea. This is scalable. I think I can really do something. And then he was at a time in his life where he was ready to sell his business and make a move. So he ended up investing in a tactical baby gear and became a partner. And now here we are. So
that's an awesome, smooth transition, man. That's incredible.
It couldn't have worked out better. And I certainly wouldn't be where I am today without his help, for sure. So
for sure. Wow, that's incredible, man. I love that story.
Yeah, it worked out really well. What in the world kind of transition happened for you going from a respiratory nurse, right? You were a nurse?
Respiratory
therapist to a YouTuber. Like, what does this transition look like? And how did you become, was it your goal to be in medicine and be a therapist at one point, or did you just fall into that?
It's weird. School never came easy to me. My mantra was, D's and C's get degrees. And so I went to school in Seattle. It was I'm one of three boys. My oldest brother, he's the brilliant guy in the family. He's one got his master's. School was easy. He was good at it. He got that gene from my dad. And I just didn't get that gene. I had that gene that like couldn't focus, and not necessarily the ADHD part. It's more of like I couldn't envision things in my head. Like I couldn't see numbers in my head. I could read the same paragraph 12 times over and not retain any information. So didn't know how to use my brain exactly. And which is funny because I had one semester in college where my parents like paid for a prescription of Adderall for me. And what was incredible, here's a little side story. This is kind of how I kind of learned how my brain functions. I was in class, in math class, and what was it, algebra or geometry? I don't specifically remember. And I remember I came up with this. What I realized what Adderall did for my brain is it would allow for me to somehow put information into containers in my brain, and later I would almost know which container that information's in, and I could retrieve it, even though I didn't focus. Like I kind of have like listen to it, and certain words kind of set out. So what I ended up doing is, when the 30-day prescription ran out, and it was like $400 with no insurance to go get it. So I was like, well, obviously I can't have it, but let's learn how I worked off of it. So I had developed a system where I'd go to class, and for that hour-long class, I would just write chicken scratch. Everything that was on the board, I would write down on this chicken scratch piece of paper. Right after that, I would go to the library, and I would use one of those, those clicky pens that have 4 colors, green, red, blue, black. And I would do every step in that composition notebook in different colors. And so essentially, I created these cubbies are based off of colors, and that information be retained. So I basically would teach myself how to learn. And the way I taught myself was reverse engineering my own brain, I guess. Now that transition, how did that come? I realized school was not easy for me. I found myself in a situation where my wife wanted these things. I couldn't buy them. I think we're between myself, her, and my firstborn. I was like bringing home, this is before I even worked at the hospital, but I did like granite with my father, and I was making like $1,200 a month, right? Like, just like money's not there. And all of a sudden the thing on Instagram, kind of like you gain some followers, traction, saw people with tools, and I always thought, wow, they're sponsored. So how cool would it be to one day, I told my wife, like, one day I just want to, my goal is to just get a set of free tools or something, and like I would reach nirvana. And she's like, all right, I was like, let me commit 4 years of my life 100% to this in whatever way it looks like. And then if it doesn't work out in 4 years, I'll say I gave it the old college try, did my best, and I could just pack it up and not do it again. So she's like, cool, do it. So at that point on, it was more like me going, okay, how do I grow followers? Okay, so these guys are blogging, so I need to do blogging. So I'll start blogging, doing stuff. Nobody's reading my blogs. Okay, post that stuff on Pinterest. Got a little bit of traction there. And then later on, my buddy, who's a pretty successful photographer in Seattle, they're good friends of ours. They were visiting from Seattle, and they're like, what you need to do? You need to get on YouTube. And I go, dude, I'm so annoyed that I have to learn. First of all, I'm learning the skill set of like woodworking and building, which I'm having fun. But now I have to learn how to take these really good pictures to put it on social media. Like, I'm learning how to use cameras and ISOs and all that stuff. And I was like, I don't want to start learning video now. That's too much to add to it. And I remember I was making New Year's resolutions in 2016. And one of the things was to make a YouTube video. And the video was a 4-minute video. It looked like one of those ISIS ransom videos where the guy stands in front of the camera and talks to it. The camera never moves. And I'm basically like a ransom thing. I was doing a review of like one of the sanders that I had, but it was my thing. It was like, I just got to do it. I just got to create one video, put it out, and that's it. Nobody watched that video, but that was what happened. Then I started dabbling into Gary Vee's stuff, where he's always like, he's like, you don't need
one
sleep.
Post away. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't need sleep. You're a bitch if you need sleep. You're one video away from making it big. And that was my mantra. Like, I'm one video away. And it took me 68 videos to finally figure out what worked and what didn't. And
that's not a lot, to be honest. I mean, a lot of people I've made way more videos than that. And I still don't know. Like, YouTube's such a freaking animal, man. Like, and you've done you have huge success. Yeah. And you and I first connected and we sponsored those couple videos, you had like 250,000 subscribers roughly. And where are you at now? Yeah. How many do you have?
You're at 560.
Yeah. So you've over doubled in like less than a year, or roughly a year.
Yeah. No, it's, and we can jump into YouTube here in the conversation if you want. I'm more than happy to, but like that transition was kind of, it was one video away, and I just kind of got into that psychotic mode. And when all my buddies were coaching their kids as T-ball, I'm making videos and I'm missing my kids' stuff. And it eventually, I had my first couple of sponsorships with a couple of companies, and from that point on, I specifically remember one of my videos went nuclear. It was I did a bathroom renovation where I built this like big shower. And that video went and performed like 4,000 views every hour for like 7 days straight. And when I was doing that and it got in the millions, it lit fire to like 6 other one of my videos, which it all of a sudden indexed all my stuff where YouTube was like, oh, you're in this kind of space. You're in the home rental space. Well, all of these are in that space and people are liking it.
And you're like, yeah, no shit. That's what I've been putting in your little drop down menu for like the last 60 videos.
Dude, I got so much in my head. I think, and we could talk about success or whatnot, but like, I think that an answer to a definition of like, how do you achieve success is like, you gotta be psychotic and obsessed about something. And I think if you're obsessed about something long enough, it's just gonna work out. Yes, that girl might not date you if you, you know what I mean? I'm kidding.
I say that all the time.
That joke was going to look like dark for a second, but when you obsess about it so long, things just eventually you start figuring out. And I just refuse. I just refuse to not do it. And yeah.
I give that advice to people all the time because a lot of people saw Tactical Baby Gear as like this overnight success, and it wasn't an overnight success, and it was, like people are just becoming aware of us, over the last maybe 2 years or so, but we don't realize it's 8 years old, and then it took 15 years in the automotive industry to get to a place where I could start this company, and the relationships that I had from that I was able to help leverage and like. So, here I am at almost nearly 20-year overnight success, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like people don't understand that. But what I tell people is like, when they want to, I was doing a lot of consulting for like e-commerce type of business and Facebook ads and stuff like that. And a lot of people contact me and reach out because they have an idea. They want to sell something because they see other people doing it and they just want to make money. And they're really just trying to chase a quick buck. And I'm like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And like, well, what do you mean? Like everyone else is selling coffee. I'm like, you don't even like coffee. Like, you know what I mean? Like or whatever the thing is that's trendy. Yeah. But I'm like, listen, you don't have a passion for it. For this to be successful, you have to have passion for it. That passion is going to create the energy. The energy is what's going to allow you to work till 2 and 3 a.m. and be like sort of psychotic about it and just not give up. And you won't even realize you're not sleeping because you're just so passionate and so obsessed over it that you're just doing. And then you're going to look back 5 years from now, realizing you never slept and all this stuff. But you're like, damn, look at where I'm at now. This is crazy. How did I get here?
Absolutely. It's I'll get a bunch of these DMs from guys going, hey, I love what you're doing. I've always wanted to start a YouTube channel and I've tried it and it didn't work. What advice can you give me? And I have like this pre-saved copy and paste thing that I just always kind of added notes to because I'm not going to spend time here and writing paragraph after paragraph. And I'll send them off to them, but they always say the same thing. It's like, I've put out like 7 videos and nothing worked. And I'm like, seven videos? Are you kidding me? Like you never even tried it. And in today's time, like YouTube's even harder because there's so many people with YouTube channels.
Anybody can do it. There's zero barrier. You can grab your iPhone, make a video, and start a YouTube channel tomorrow. There's zero barrier. So there's 100 million channels out there.
And so the hardest part now is with so many people creating really similar content, what kind of content can you create that's outside of that lane to be noticeable on YouTube?
Yeah, it's hard, man. I've made between Tactical Baby Gear and my personal channel, I use really to try to experiment with and try to understand. And I've made, I don't know, probably 125-ish videos on that channel, really around business and content and marketing and all the things that I really care about that have led to the success of this business and trying to help people and all that kind of stuff, but it gets zero traction. And I'm not willing to be super clickbaity and be like how to start $1 million business and how we make millions of dollars, any of that kind of stuff. I'm just not willing to kind of get categorized in the rest of those like guru types. I'm like, nope, not going to do it. So I was doing it my own way, thinking eventually this is going to catch on. And I've got a lot of friends that are YouTubers like yourself and like Kyle Voss. Do you know who Kyle is? The Fab Forums. He does like a car. It's an automotive channel, but he's got 300,000 subscribers or something like that. And he's a buddy of mine, and he comes down here. He's been on the podcast, and he's like, "Dude, your content's awesome." He's like, "Just keep doing what you're doing because it's going to catch on, and just keep doing it, keep doing it." And it just, I quit doing those types of videos actually somewhat recently because I felt like I was having to convince people that I knew what I was talking about because I wasn't willing to be super like rah. So I was like, you know what, screw this. And I started making some videos going back to my roots. I was like, I got this old Land Cruiser I'm going to start working on. And I asked people on Tactical Baby Gear, like, hey, I'm going to rebuild this Land Cruiser. Do you guys want to see videos? And I was like an overwhelming, like, yeah, let's, show us the videos. I was like, damn, people want to see this thing. All right, cool. So I made a couple videos about it and they've been like my best performing videos I've ever made. And what's really interesting is I had to put zero effort into it. I just did what I do. I didn't have to try to convince anybody or plan a big video or scripts or what, any of this kind of stuff. It was just like, I'm just going to pull this thing out that I've had for a decade. I'm going to clean it up and we're going to start a video series about it. And it's just like, not crazy. So, it's 4,000 views or something, which is way better than the 110 views I was getting on other videos.
Right.
And they continue to grow and they're doing well. And then the next video, same thing. And then I've got sponsors on board now who supplied me with all the gear for it and all the stuff. And it's like, it's awesome. So it's like you finally find what works and what you still have to be passionate about it. You can't just find it like, what kind of video can I make to get a ton of views? Like, cause again, you'll burn yourself out if you hate it. It doesn't last, right?
Yeah, no, it's man, it's so awesome that you found that lane that's working for you. And what you'll find is with these when there's episodes and series, you now have when there's a thing where the person's excitement is like, as a viewer, I'm consuming content of you tricking out this car. I'm along the ride of seeing like which direction he's going to take, especially if the budget is significant enough that you're like, we can make really cool transformations. Then you're going to have incentive of people come back. We're just experimenting for the first time with this concrete slab house renovation series. And before all my videos we're doing a transformation of one thing and it's the thing, right? So when we did the nursery, here's the nursery before, here's the nursery after, here's us doing it. But you would be filming for 2-3 weeks and then editing and then putting one video out. And then we're like, well, what if, because I was kind of getting a little burnt out, I was like, listen, I got to hire on people. I can't be filming and building and then editing. And, I need somebody else to do this. Yeah. And so finally, when we kind of started building out this team, everybody had a role and it was such a smooth transition that I realized, cool, I'm making good money on YouTube and I could buy cool things. But what I don't have is I don't have time now. And you end up becoming a slave to this machine. And now the joy of building goes away. Like people would ask me, what's your favorite thing to build? I go, well, whatever the camera's off, that's my favorite thing to build because I'm not stressing about angles and all this stuff. Like I just want to build because that's what got me to the dance. Like that's what I do for fun.
Yeah.
And so putting people in those roles now allowed for me to go back to my roots of enjoying what I do. And then if I'm happy about it, then I have the passion and the creativity to be like, how do we introduce more personality on camera? How do we take this from a project base to like an episode where it's a show now? And I feel like we finally got that success where people are coming back to watch every video. If we're doing the floors, then that episode is just floors. If it's us demoing kitchen, that's just demoing. I don't have to worry about like we have to demo this thing and do this and the other thing.
Yeah, and then try to pack all that into one like 15 to 20 minute video.
Yeah, and what's cool is like when you create content enough, I think whenever people try to imitate other people, other content creators, which it's a natural progression, that's when views are never there. Like, but as soon as if you start creating Casey Neistat videos, nobody's gonna watch your stuff. But like what got Peter McKinnon to the dance is he put out a lot of information out there and that was consumable for people. And then after that, he started introducing his personality. As opposed to people who come in and show their personality and try to mix it with that information. And in the YouTube world, it's like, you haven't earned our accreditation for you yet, like as from the viewer's perspective. But you do that long enough, you start getting a better finger on the pulse and you start seeing, is my audience ready for this different personality trait on the channel or different type of content?
Sure. How was that affected the family dynamic and with your kids even? Like, do they understand the scale of that, of what you're creating on YouTube?
So what's funny is my kids consume like all these dumb YouTube channels where like Preston and all these or what do they call it? What's the other channel? There's a Share the Love channel. Like there's these basically Disney channels, basically YouTube videos where it's these Disney star aged kids. And they have Lamborghinis. They have, oh my gosh, we hit $1,000 or $1 million in the house. Let's go find it. And they'll watch these obnoxious reaction videos. And so they're in that YouTube, they consume YouTube content. They understand I make YouTube videos. They understand that's dad's work. But I think recently it started being kind of, I don't know if the word is weird, but it's trying to figure out how. So I have merch, right? And I have merch for my kids. Every line that comes out, I always do like 2 things. And that's one for my kid, both of my kids kind of thing. And they'll wear that to school, and they'll have like kids at their school be like, hey, I watched, like the point of the shirt be like, I watched that YouTube channel. And he's like, oh, well, he's my dad. So it's like this. So the 7-year-old kid is like, that's my dad, And
right.
It's,
so it's now starting to kind of catch on and click a little bit.
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. So my kids are like, because all these YouTube channels that they're watching, like they have a Lambo. They're like, Dad, can we get a Lambo? I go, no, we can't get a Lambo. What are we all going to drive in this Lambo? Like, because they're like, like, Dad, Tesla, that YouTuber has a Tesla. You should get a Tesla. I was like, what? I don't like. So I think the weirder part to me is having their brains figure out that people know me. And then the other part is having their brains figure out that YouTube's not real. You know what I mean? That's not what life is. So like Beckham would be like, hey, let's you should give away. Oh no, what was it? There was like, Dad, we should hit subscribe so we can win the iPhone that the guy's giving away. I go, Beckham, he's not giving you the iPhone.
My kids consume a lot of content, a lot of YouTube as well, as you can imagine at 7 and 9. Same thing, right? They're just watching a lot of the same types of channels and videos, I'm sure. Yeah. And my kids, though, they know the scale of the business, I think, to a degree, because we do a lot of events. Everyone in town knows me, right? I drive a wrapped truck a lot of times. I drive that thing. I have other vehicles that I drive that if I want to be low key, but Kendall, my youngest daughter, her face is on the, like I'm holding her in the truck on the wrap, so she's like on the truck, and then everyone knows me. We go wherever, and it's like someone wants to stop me and take a picture, or they know me, or this. She's like, and so they're just like, even all the teachers at school know me, right? So like, or they listen to the podcast, or they watch the videos. Yeah. And so for them, they've always known that, like, they're always like, well, Dad, you're famous. Like, and then, I wouldn't consider myself famous. I am known, in some groups, but I'm not famous, but, but they think I'm famous. But which is funny. It's fun to mess with them sometimes because of that mentality. But at other times, they're like, they'll see some YouTuber that's like some big name person, Casey Neistat, for example. And they'll be like, oh, Dad, is that your friend? You know him? Because usually I know so many people. Like, well, I'll watch one of your videos and I'm like, oh, that's Alex. He's a buddy of mine. He's like, look, he's got Tactical Baby Gear right there. And they're like, oh, so they think I know like all the big YouTubers because like we sponsor so many videos and whatever. So it's kind of funny from a different perspective.
I think what's cool is when you have a good family dynamic, where like there's a lot of people, it's hard for people to realize, but there's a lot of people who are not happy at home and they're happy when they're outside of the house. And when you have a cultivated family dynamic where like, listen, my thing is like, I'm always busy, but then like, I love coming home because of my family's there. Like I don't travel well. So to me, cause I'm like, if I'm doing a thing by myself, I'm like, I'll do an overnight, like a morning to night trip, like just a same day trip, just for the sake of like, I don't like being away from my family. And so when you get in that kind of dynamic and you reach some kind of level of success, you want to do nothing more but to impress like your family. Like that's to me is like my only thing is like, so whenever my wife is impressed by something YouTube related, it's like, to me, it's the coolest feeling in the world. Or like when my kids, like we went skiing and somebody like stopped me and they're like, oh, I watch your channel. Like seeing my kids recognize that one of their, kids that they might be the same age, like recognizing me. To me, I'm like, hey, did you see that? Like, your dad's okay, huh? Your dad's all right. Like,
I'm pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. Like, cause I don't like, you can't, when you're so busy, you don't have time for friends anymore. So you're like, I don't care. Like, but impressing your family is probably one of the coolest things that I think it's healthy. It's just,
I think it is because a lot of times they may not understand. And this was the case even for me. Like they don't understand why you're working so hard until those types of things happen. And they're like, I get it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you finally get the recognition of all the hard work you've put in without you having to like say like, look what I'm doing for us. And it kind of comes in a different way. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but I think you know what I'm trying to say, where it's like,
yeah. And I mean, with me, it's a little bit different too, because I created even our filming hours based around my kids' time that they're in school, right? So like I used to, when I first, they say like, when they see how well Tactical Baby Gear is doing, people go, oh, must be nice, overnight success. But what they don't understand is like, there's this big grind and sacrifice. And then eventually your head goes above water and you're like, oh, okay, now I figured it out. Now we're making money, we're doing stuff. And people see you only at that point and they say, oh, must be nice. But then from that point on, you're going to take things to the next level, come out a different product, doing a different approach. And now you're up and making sacrifices until your next must be nice. So people don't see these cliffs. And the way I navigate around those little peaks is, in my early stages, I caught myself saying no so much to my kids. Dad, can we do this? No. Dad, can we do that? No. Why? Because I'm working, right? And then I again, like this whole Adderall story, I had to reverse engineer this. So I was like, well, okay, what if I create rules and say, hey, Dad, can we do this? After 5 o'clock. After 5 o'clock, or to me, it's 3 because we're done filming at 3. It's like after 3, yes. So it's everything is no before 3. And after 3, they go, okay, then that's when we're doing it. So I created the channels for it.
So that's interesting because with really your all of your work is based around doing home renovations in your own house. So you're always home.
Yep.
I kind of almost missed that point for a second. You know what I mean? Like not even thinking about it. Like, yeah, you're building stuff and you're doing this channel, but really you're at home doing this. So it's like they come home from school.
I don't have an office. Right. I don't have a warehouse. I don't have anywhere I go that dictates my operating hours. So the way my schedule's set up is, if I want to avoid saying no to them because I'm working from the place that they live, my alarm will go off at 5, so that's computer time. They're sleeping, so I don't get to be asked yes or no's. I don't tell anybody no. And then after that, I wake them up, get them breakfast. While they're eating, I work out, and then I make sure I take them to school because I got to be in front of their face. Once they're dropped off, one of my guys is running the materials. We meet up at my house. The videographer, everybody shows up. We start building and filming from 10 to 3. I wrap up. I go pick them up from school because I got to be in front of their face. So because of creating the schedule around them, there's very little pockets outside of perhaps maybe summer break when they're constantly at home, that I have to now actually say no to them. So that's now, by doing these kind of things, the joy of creating content at the level or the speed that we are is now fun again.
Yeah, you've got to put those parameters in place. And like you said too earlier, I have another thing to add to this because your wife must think that you're the greatest person in the world because you seem to be doing all of it. So leave a little for the rest of us. You're making us look bad, dude. Come on.
What's that line from?
Good. What?
Oh, I was going to say the line from The Office. I love The Office. Michael Scott. They're like, "What's your weaknesses?" Like, well, I work too hard. I love too much, and something like that.
Yeah.
All my weaknesses, my strengths are my weaknesses.
What was I gonna say though? Putting parameters in place. Oh, the balance with like friends and stuff, like you talked about, like when you start to lose time for friends and that kind of stuff. YouTube, a lot like entrepreneurship. I mean, you're working for yourself. I'm working for myself. Yeah. You're doing certain things that I'm sure most of your friends don't understand or comprehend. So, and I'm sure you don't have a lot of local friends that you can talk to about YouTube and whatever. So it's a lonely space. And I find myself in that place too. Cause I've sort of grown distant from a lot of my close friends because they're running around in circles that I don't want to be a part of, or they're living a lifestyle that I don't want to be a part of, or whatever. But like, I love these people and you kind of start to distance yourself away from them. One, as an entrepreneur, because you're just busy as hell. And now I've got a whole nother set of problems in my life that I've got to deal with, and CPAs and accountants and big issues that none of them are going to understand. You know what I mean? So like, who do I have nobody to talk to about that kind of stuff? And same thing with YouTube. Like it's a lonely, lonely place. And you
very much so.
You really only have your family. You know what I mean? A lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sucks because you tend to relate to other people who are content creators, and it's the most amazing thing in the world when you get to be in an event, and you're sharing, you're spitballing ideas, like it's your creative juices are flowing, and then you got buddies here where like I'm not a sports guy. Like to me, like a majority of my local buddies that I know, they know where that baseball player went to high school and what that guy, how he played in basketball in college. I don't have an attention span for that. To me, I have like one thing that I consume. That's UFC. That's because they're quick fights. You know what I mean? There's not that many high ranked fighters in their divisions. And so to me, it's like and so because sports is not a thing, like I can't relate to somebody. To me, I'm more consumed about like, hey, let's talk about YouTube strategies. I don't care about what LeBron did. You know what I mean? Like you find different caliber of people.
Speaking of YouTube strategies, did you strategize a lot of that stuff in the early days to have the success with thumbnails and titles and the two things that make the big, like those two things are almost more important than the video themselves?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, was something that you had to figure out and learn? Did you have anybody that was kind of guiding you or like bouncing ideas like, hey, I got this video. What do you think about this idea or this title? And they would be like, well, what if you did this? And then did you have anybody like that?
Yeah. So in the early stages, I did not. And then once I got a little bit of success or growth, a little bit, I was lucky enough to meet a lot of friends or make friends with these YouTube channels that are bigger than mine. And, they started to give me a little bit more clarity about the content, or not the content, but like one of the first piece of advice was somebody saying like, hey, how long are your videos? Okay, my videos are 12 minutes long. Well, how long are people in early stages? How long are the people sticking around watching? Audience retention, right? 32%. Well, that means you're drawing out stuff. Like nobody's sticking around to watch your stuff. So YouTube is going like, well, this content clearly sucks. This is not, it's garbage content. They're not going to push it. So at that point, I started strategizing in terms of editing things really quickly, like editing them,
keeping up the pace, trim the fat. Yep.
Yeah, like you're trying to present something to a 5-year-old. If a 5-year-old doesn't have that attention span, nobody's going to watch it. So that was my first piece of a thing that I was kind of really dialing in. And then it came really clear to me really quickly how, somebody will have garbage content but a great thumbnail, and I was like, oh, I need so then you start realizing there's a CTR, click-through rate, right? And that means based off of X amount of people that were presented on, like, for example,
the number of impressions versus the number of times it was clicked.
Yeah,
this is your click-through rate.
Exactly. And that'll tell you if your thumbnail's good enough, And then at that point on, I would run through some of these ideas with my friends that I was like, hey, what do you think with this one? They're like, a little too busy. And then eventually I started contracting thumbnails out to the people who are good at Photoshop. And and then, now somebody else took over that part. And so that's kind of like I guess I'd say keys to success now is like, have somebody who knows how to edit if you can now.
That's right? Hard to start doing it. Do you find it hard to, and maybe it's a little bit different with your type of content because you're like, we need to document, we're transforming this room from this to this, let's document it. And you can hand that off to someone who understands editing and pacing and those kinds of things. I was making content that really, and even now still, it's like I film a lot of stuff and I've got to like sort of figure out the story later. And that's really hard to do. And like only you can do that a lot of times. You know what I mean? Where could you imagine someone else, Casey Neistat, for example, could you imagine him handing off a video for someone else to edit? It would not be a Casey Neistat video.
Right. No, absolutely not. Yeah. And it's when it's a vlog hard. Style too.
Yeah.
You're putting a little bit of personality onto it. But with me, when I used to film and edit, I used to say it all the time. It's like, I hate every video I do. It's a little cringeworthy for me to even watch it. But then when it got to the point where all I'm working on is building and somebody else focuses on the storytelling, then when I watch it, I go, oh crap, I didn't know you caught that. Yeah. That's cool how you pitched that. Like, I love how the story starts out dramatic and then we actually did, and there was a resolution. So it wasn't too clickbaity. Now I can't say I hate what I do because he's the one that created it and I love what he does, Cool. So that really makes things, kind of focus on what brought you to the dance. If your thing is creating ideas like making sick, baby gear stuff, why would you be focusing on editing those images if you can just focus your energy, your bandwidth on that thing?
Yeah. I mean, it's easier said than done. Trying to find that talent. Yeah. Like we have a pretty limited talent pool here where we live. And I've brought people in I've moved people here and, some of them have worked, some of them haven't. But it's tough, man. It's hard to find the right person, especially that understands the brand. You know, we kind of have a very kind of particular brand DNA, and trying to get someone else to sort of understand that and convey that is difficult, you know?
Yeah, but, absolutely.
Your wife, what does she do? If you're doing all the stuff, like what is she? She's just hanging around and simping mimosas or what?
I told you.
She's a deadbeat
mom. Good question. I'm kidding.
What wife?
She's a killer businesswoman as well. She started, her degree was just in English or something like that, and then she
something like that. Whatever.
Nothing important. And so she started a local staging company. So she would basically buy a bunch of furniture and stage all these brand new build constructions. She started entering a few Parade of Homes. I don't know if you guys have Parade of Homes where you guys are, but
we don't. But I'm familiar.
And then as of what was it, last week or the week before that, she officially sold off her business and kept the branding where she's transitioning strictly to interior design. So now she doesn't have to keep inventory. She doesn't deal with scheduling. She's just purely getting hired on, transforming people's spaces and snapping necks.
So she's designing your spaces and you're building her vision at your house.
Yeah.
So really you work for your wife.
I work for my wife.
She's the real boss.
We don't argue much, and we communicate through humor. But I get frustrated when these ideas will come for like what we're doing to the house. And I'm trying to keep things balanced in terms of like, listen, we're going to waste too much money by doing that one thing. Like she's got these ideas where like, can we move the house 3 inches to the right? You know what I mean? These kind of things. We got a fireplace. It's a corner fireplace, a natural fireplace. And she goes, can we move it and make it straight? I go, you don't understand what you're asking of me right now. It's not a quick cut and paste thing. Like we have framing involved in
the chimney
cornerstone of the house. The cornerstone of the house. It's lined with brick. And she'll always try to, flatter me when she's like, well, now I know you're capable of. I was like, no. Don't try to sugarcoat it. I'm not capable of shit. Like this is nothing. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll argue about, all of her ideas because we're like, oh, yeah, that's cool. You just pitched that and walked away. But I always go back to this because every idea she's had that I rolled my eyes because of how much work it would take, every video went into the millions. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I get it, but I also
she clearly has a vision. I mean, I follow her on Instagram. I see the stuff she does. She's extremely talented. She's very funny. Like y'all, the podcast you guys do together is super funny. Yeah. She seems like a blast, and I hope one day we can get our families together and come up there and visit her.
100%.
Maybe you guys come down south. We'll go out.
You'll take your boat and I'll take my boat and we'll just meet down the middle from where we're at.
That'll work perfectly. Where are you at? You're in Idaho, right? Boise?
Yeah. There's a little bit of a trek before I find the ocean.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome, dude. Yeah. Well, listen, I really appreciate it. It's been a blast to have you on here and chat a little bit. Tell everybody where they can find you. YouTube, Instagram.
Yeah. YouTube is Mr. Build It. Social media is Mr. Build It. And then we have a podcast called Next Door Neighbors. That's my wife and I. We banter about what we do and business behind it, and we just have fun.
It's funny. Are you going to pick that back up? You guys have taken a little time off with the move and all that?
No. We've been doing it consistently for now a year, I think. Yeah. Every Friday, and it drops every Tuesday. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome, dude. Good for you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Guys, thanks for listening and watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave ratings, reviews, all that kind of stuff. I'd appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next episode.